Okay, I want you to just hold up your hand for a second.
Right.
Look at your pinky finger. Now, just look at the very last joint of that finger. That tiny little
We're
piece.
talking about, what, maybe 4 cubic centimeters of volume, if that.
Exactly. It's nothing. It's basically a rounding error in the grand scheme of your body.
Right.
And yet, what if I told you that inside a space that small sits the absolute command center for your entire
That
existence?
sounds like a bit of an exaggeration, to be honest.
I know, but I'm talking about your ability to grow, your response to stress, your sex drive, your fertility, and that gnawing feeling that drives you to the fridge at midnight.
Okay, when you put it like that,
Mm.
and you look at the neuroanatomy, yeah, it's spot on.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a stack that is, well, it's a really strange mix.
It is.
We've got these incredibly dense anatomical papers from Anna Gaichen's research, some high-res MRI scans that honestly look like modern art, and then
And then Da Vinci and Michelangelo.
making a guest appearance in a neuroscience discussion, which I love.
For sure. But there's a reason, right?
Yeah, there is. The mission today is to zoom in on the hypothalamus. But we're not just doing a general overview. We are drilling down into two microscopic structures.
Mm-hmm.
The arcuate nucleus, we'll just call it the ARC.
And the median eminence, or the ME.
Right.
And just to set the stakes here, these things are so small that even a modern functional MRI, the best tech we have, it really struggles to see them clearly.
That was the part that just blew my mind.
Yeah, we know where they are structurally, but watching individual neurons fire there in real time, it's just out of reach for us.
That's the paradox, isn't it? We can map the globe with street view, but we can't see the thinking happening inside this tiny spot that runs our lives.
It is the black box of survival. It sits right above the roof of your mouth, kind of tucked behind your eyes.
Yeah.
And while we can't see the individual sparks, we absolutely see the fire they create.
Hunger, reproduction, growth.
It all starts right there.
Okay, so before we get into the nuts and bolts of how this thing makes us hangry, I want to talk about the history. Because the stack suggests humans have been obsessed with finding this control center for a long, long time.
Oh, for centuries, long before we knew what a neuron was, we've always had this sense that there must be a seat of the soul.
So we've got these sketches from Leonardo da Vinci in the show notes. Looking at them, he wasn't really focused on the gray matter, was he?
No, not at all. He was obsessed with the empty spaces.
The ventricles.
Exactly. You have to remember, back then, anatomy was driven by philosophy, by theology, and they thought the soul, or the sensus communis, the core of consciousness, it couldn't be in the meat of the brain.
The flesh was too mortal.
Right. It had to be in the void, in the spirit. So Da Vinci was mapping these fluid-filled caverns, thinking he was finding the home of the soul.
And then a bit later you have Descartes, the philosopher, who famously points to the pineal gland.
The seat of the soul, yeah. He was wrong about the location. It mostly handles melatonin. But he was right about the concept. He knew there had to be a central processing unit.
A single point where the physical body met the immaterial mind.
He just picked the wrong spot.
But the one that really got me, and I've seen this painting 1,000 times and never noticed, is the Michelangelo theory, the creation of Adam.
Oh, yeah. It completely changes how you see the Sistine Chapel.
We all know it, God reaching out to touch Adam's finger. But the source material points out the shape of the cloud or the cloak that God is floating in.
It's a very specific shape.
It's not just a random cloud, is it?
No. If you trace the outline and you put it next to a medical diagram, it's an almost perfect cross-section of the human brain.
It matches down to the brainstem and the pituitary gland. It's uncanny.
It's a huge theory in medical circles. The idea is that Michelangelo, who we know did secret dissections, was hiding this message in plain sight.
What? That the divine is actually biology.
That God is coming from the brain. That intellect, creation, it's all anatomy.
That is wild. Okay, so fast forward a few hundred years. We swap the paintings for MRIs. Let's look at figure 6. We're not looking for God in a cloud anymore. We're looking for the bright spot.
This is a sagittal view, so a slice of the head from the side. You see that glowing white area? That's the posterior pituitary. It glows like that because of fat-rich granules stored there. It's your landmark.
But then when you look at the other view, the coronal head-on view, it looks like a nightmare of plumbing, just incredibly crowded.
It is high-density real estate. You're looking at the cavernous sinus. It's this tiny, hollow space, but look what's packed inside. You've got the internal carotid artery
The main blood supply to the front of the brain.
and a whole bundle of cranial nerves, 3, 4, V, and 6.
So you have the main power line and the main data cables all jammed into a space the size of a grate.
And right in the middle of that chaos, protected by all of it, is the hypothalamus and the pituitary. Evolution packed it in there for a reason. It's vital.
But here's the twist, and this is where the biology gets, I don't know, risky. Usually we talk about the brain as a fortress, the blood-brain barrier.
Right, it keeps all the bad stuff out. No toxins, no bacteria. It needs a very stable chemical environment to work.
If the balance shifts, the neurons misfire.
Exactly.
But the median eminence, this ME structure, it didn't get the memo. It doesn't have a door.
It's more that it was built with a window. The ME is what we call a circumventricular organ, so it effectively sits outside the blood-brain barrier.
The notes call them fenestrated capillaries.
Fenestra. It's Latin for window. Usually brain capillaries are like sealed pipes. Nothing leaks.
Yeah.
But here, in the ME, the blood vessels literally have tiny holes in them, pores.
Wait, that sounds like a massive design flaw. Why would you put a hole in the security wall of the most important organ?
Because the brain needs to taste the blood.
Okay, that's a visceral image. Taste the blood.
Well, think about it. How can the brain regulate your blood sugar if it can't sense how much sugar is actually there? How can it know if you're starving if it can't detect the hormones from your gut?
So it needs to sample the goods.
The median eminence is the intake valve. It lets the hypothalamus check on the body's chemical state directly.
So it's a calculated risk. You let the barrier down in one specific spot to get crucial data.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But it's not totally unguarded. You have these specialized cells called tanycytes.
Which sounds like a sci-fi villain.
Right. But they're actually the bouncers, the
Mhm.
gatekeepers.
Okay.
They're a type of glial cell, a support cell, and they line the floor of the brain and reach down into these leaky blood vessels. They physically control what gets from the blood to the neurons. They're deciding, okay, leptin, you can pass. Virus, you stay out.
So we have the median eminence as the open window.
Yeah.
And sitting right above it, watching everything that comes in, is the arcuate nucleus, the ARC.
The ARC, this is the sensor. If the ME is the loading dock where the trucks pull in, the ARC is the manager's office overlooking the whole thing, checking the manifests.
And this is where we get into what the notes called the Hunger Games. Because inside this tiny nucleus, there's basically a civil war happening 247 about what I should eat.
It's a constant tug of war. You have two very distinct gangs of neurons.
Okay.
On one side, you have the NPYA-GRP neurons,
The notes call them orexigenic.
which is just a fancy way of saying appetite stimulating. When these fire, they are screaming at you. They're saying, we're low on fuel, find food, eat, now. They're the feeling of hunger.
And who are they fighting against?
They're fighting the Pomsky-Cart neurons. These are anorexigenic. They produce satiety. They tell you, okay, we have enough energy, put the fork down, stop.
So when I'm standing there deciding if I should have that second slice of pizza,
Yeah.
it feels like free will, but really it's just which one of these neuron groups is shouting louder.
Effectively, yeah. The ARC is integrating all these signals. It weighs the leptin hormone from your fat cells, which says you're full, against the ghrelin from your stomach, which says you're empty. And that balance determines your behavior.
That's humbling. It turns I want a snack into a math equation.
Pretty much.
But the notes take a darker turn here. They link this whole mechanism to eating disorders like anorexia.
And this is a really crucial insight. We often frame these disorders as purely psychological, issues of control or self-image.
Right.
But the research is pointing to a hardware malfunction, a problem with the system itself,
The sensor is broken.
or the wiring is crossed. I mean, if your NPY neurons fail to fire, or if the signals just can't get through to the ARC, your brain never gets the message that it's starving.
Wow. So you could be physically emaciated.
But your brain is biochemically convinced that it's full.
That reframes the whole idea of willpower in recovery. You can't just will your way out of a broken circuit board.
Exactly. It really validates the biological basis of the disorder. It's not just a choice. It's a dysfunction in the absolute core of your survival center.
So the ARC is listening, it's sensing, but it isn't just a passive observer, it talks back. The notes call it a command center.
This is the master switch.
Yeah.
The neurons in the ARC, they don't just sit there. They send these long cables, axons, down into the median eminence to release their own chemical.
Neurohormones, and they drop them into, what, a private elevator?
The portal system. It's a brilliant bit of plumbing. A direct vascular highway that connects the hypothalamus straight to the pituitary gland. It bypasses the rest of the body's circulation.
So it's like a direct message.
An instant message.
Yeah.
And in high concentration. The ARC drops a message in the chute, and the pituitary gets it immediately.
Let's run through the commands because it covers, well, pretty much everything.
Growth is a big one.
Mm.
The ARC releases GHRH, growth hormone-releasing hormone. That tells the pituitary to make you grow. But it also has a brake, a hormone called somatostatin, that tells it to stop.
So my final height is just the result of that negotiation.
The gas and the brake, yep.
What about prolactin?
Milk production. And here's a weird fact. The pituitary's default state is to make milk. It wants to produce prolactin all the time.
So why aren't we all lactating right now?
Because the arcuate nucleus is constantly stepping on the brake. It drips dopamine down to the pituitary, and that inhibits prolactin. That's a huge function of dopamine here. It's a do not lactate signal.
So if you cut the connection.
If you were to sever the stalk connecting them, prolactin levels would shoot through the roof, cut the brake line.
That's incredible. It's active inhibition. It's working hard just to do nothing.
Control through suppression is a common theme in the brain.
Okay, there's one last system here that seems the most complex, but maybe the most critical for, the species. Reproduction. We have to talk about the neurons with the best name, the KNDD neurons.
Pronounced candy. It stands for kisspeptin, neurokinin B, and dynorphin.
And they were actually named after Hershey's Kisses.
Believe it or not, yes. The gene was discovered by researchers in Hershey, Pennsylvania. But despite the cute name, they run a very tight ship. They form what's called the GnRH pulse generator.
The key word there being pulse.
This is the absolute take-home message for reproduction. Hormones cannot be static. If you just flooded the body with a steady stream of reproductive hormones, the system would shut down.
It's called desensitization, right?
Exactly. It's like listening to a constant drone versus a drum beat. You eventually just tune out the drone.
You stop hearing it.
To keep the system listening, the signal has to have a rhythm. And the KNDD neurons coordinate to fire in bursts. Pulse, then wait.
Yeah.
Pulse, then wait. And that rhythm drives the pituitary.
So puberty is basically just these neurons learning how to keep a beat.
In a sense, yes. And if they lose that rhythm, fertility stops.
Which connects right back to the hunger issue we were just talking about.
How so? Well, reproduction is expensive. Energetically, having a baby requires a huge amount of calories. So if the arcuate nucleus senses starvation, if that hunger gang is winning the war, it shuts down the KND neurons.
It kills the pulse.
It kills the ball.
Oh.
Because the body can't afford a baby if it can't even feed itself.
It's an integrated system.
The ARC is the accountant making that call. Funds are low, cancel the project.
And it's doing this on a schedule. The notes talk about circadian and ultradian rhythms.
The ARC is the conductor. Circadian is your 24-hour cycle wake, sleep. Ultradian is faster, like these hormone pulses every hour or so. The ARC makes sure the whole orchestra plays in time.
So let's just zoom out for a second. We started with this 4 cubic centimeter spot. We've gone from Da Vinci looking for the soul to a biological war over pizza to a pulse generator that controls the future of our species.
The synthesis is this. We're not just a bag of chemicals. We are a tightly regulated, adaptive system. And the arcuate nucleus is the central point.
The censor, the judge, and the executioner, all in one.
It takes in the data sugar, stress, light, fat, and it issues the commands that keep you alive and allow you to reproduce. It's the core of biological perseverance.
It does leave me with a strange feeling, though. We put so much value on our personality, our choices, our self. I like to think I'm distinct because of my thoughts and desires.
We cling to our sense of agency. We want to be in charge.
But how much of that is really just a group of KND neurons keeping a beat? Or a tanny site opening a window? If you change the chemical soup in that 1 teaspoon of tissue, you change who I am.
You change what I want, how I feel, what I do.
Yeah.
It's the uncomfortable question of neuroscience. Are we the driver, or are we just a passenger in a vehicle being driven by the hypothalamus?
Something to chew on the next time you feel that midnight craving. It might not be you wanting that snack. It might just be the arcuate nucleus trying to balance its books.
Respect the teaspoon.
Respect the teaspoon. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.